Yes, well, good evening, ladies and gentlemen. And as Sarah says, it's fabulous to have so many people joining us tonight. My name's Paul Stanbury. I've been with Naturetrek now since 1996. And I've been very fortunate over those years to travel widely around the world, and in particular through Africa. I look after a wide range of our tours, in particular sub-Saharan Africa, and a few areas in South America, some of our cruises as well. But without doubt, a particular love of mine is the African continent and the fabulous wildlife and landscapes that occur there. So for the first 20 minutes of this evening, I'm going to talk through Tanzania, in particular focusing on the fabulous national parks in northern Tanzania, and outlining some of the wildlife highlights and the variety of tours that we operate. So where is Tanzania? Well, it's East Africa, of course. We're here just south of the equator, and bordering Kenya, Mozambique, Zambia and the DRC. We fly into, we typically fly into Kenya, actually flying into Nairobi direct from the UK, and then taking a short flight from Nairobi across to Kilimanjaro. They do a wide variety of tours to northern Tanzania, but they all tend to focus on the same national parks and reserves. So we're flying into Arusha, Kilimanjaro Airport. We go to Arusha National Park. We go to Tarangiri to the south here, Lake Manara National Park here, and then up into the Gorogora Highlands, of course, to the crater, and then down into the Serengeti National Park. So these are the key wildlife and landscape areas of northern Tanzania. I'll say a flight, the tour holiday begins with a flight to Nairobi, and then from there we're flying down. In fact, it takes about an hour to get from Nairobi down to Arusha. You pass the snowy cap of Mount Kilimanjaro en route, the highest mountain in Africa, and reaches nearly 6,000 meters in height. But once you've seen Kilimanjaro, you'll begin to descend down into Arusha. These are sort of vehicles that we use. They're stretched land cruisers, great visibility. Everybody gets a window seat. When you're in the national park, they open the roof so you can stick your head out the roof, and so it's great for photography. Side windows open up as well, four-wheel drive, so they're really perfect for the sorts of trips that we operate. And of course, throughout the world, we pride ourselves in bringing in the very, very best guides to show you around and to show you the wildlife. All the guides we use, be it in Tanzania or other areas of the planet, are fantastic wildlife, fantastic naturalists. They know their birds as well as their mammals, and they're just really nice, friendly, chatty, easygoing people as well. So the guides really make our tours, and we've got some great guides in Tanzania who drive the vehicle, point out the birds and the wildlife, and look after you when you're out there. And on some of our trips, we also send out a UK tour leader as well to accompany you from the UK. After a couple of nights in Arusha, just to unwind and relax from the flight, we typically drive about 3 hours down to Tarangiri National Park. Tarangiri covers about 2,600 square kilometers of bush surrounding the Tarangiri River. And in the dry months of the year, the water levels are down, and the river attracts a whole wonderful variety of wildlife. It's one of the few permanent water sources in the park, and so there's a magnet for the local mammals and other wildlife. Is elephant land, and you're going to see lots of elephants on your time here. As with all our visits to the national park, typically you're getting up at first light. You have a coffee and a snack, then you head out on a morning safari. You're back for a late breakfast, brunch, siesta in the afternoon, and then out again mid-afternoon into the evening, because these are the best times for the animals and the birds, and the time of day when it's that little bit cooler and you're going to see a lot more. There are lots of giraffes as well in Tarangiri. This is a common animal you'll see throughout your throughout your stay. This is the male with the lump on the top of the head. Loads of birds as well, because Africa is blessed with some of the most diverse and wonderful bird life anywhere in the world. And East Africa in particular is very, very rich in birds. It's impossible. It would take me an entire 20 minutes to give you a brief flavour of the sort of bird life you'll see. But some of the key species, we've got white-headed buffalo weaver here. It's a common bird in Tarangiri. The aptly named superb starling, a wonderful iridescent bird, iridescent blue on the back, bright orange on the underpart, one of a family of glossy starlings that occur throughout Africa, really spectacular birds. From one of the most beautiful to one of the least beautiful, the wonderful marabou stork, but they have a very, very important role in Africa. They're scavengers, and they clean up the scraps and other leftovers from the predators. So maybe not one of the world's most attractive looking species, but vitally important to the ecosystem. Tarangiri is one of the few places in Tanzania, outside some of the parks further to the south, like Selous and Ruaha, where you stand a chance to see a wild dog. They're not common in Tanzania. They range over huge areas, but if you're lucky, we may run into a pack. Then from Tarangiri, it's only a short drive to Lake Manara National Park. It's right at the foot of the Rift Valley. Off to the right, we're climbing up the side of the Rift Valley walls up into the Gorogora Highlands, centered around a large lake, although it's actually very difficult to get to the lake shore itself. So we tend to focus most of our exploration on the bush and the mahogany forests around the edge of the lake. Again, fantastic bird life, fantastic wildlife here to enjoy. The southern ground hornbill, the largest hornbill species in Africa. Some nice mammals as well. From one of the larger birds to one of the smaller mammals. This is the little Kirk's dik-dik, which is common throughout this region of Tanzania. And if you're very lucky, Manara is famous for its tree climbing lions. And in both Manara and Tarangiri, if you're very lucky, you can find a pride of lions resting in the heat of the day up in the tree, which is quite unusual behavior for lions because they're typically a terrestrial species. And then from the lake, we climb up this Rift Valley wall and into the fabulous Ngorongoro Conservation Area. This is the entrance to the reserve. And you drive up through montane woodland, montane forest, up to the ridge, and this is where you get the fabulous view out over the Ngorongoro crater, one of the great natural wonders of the world. 3 million years ago, the crater was an active volcano, and then the volcanic caldera collapsed in a massive explosion, forming the crater we see today. And it's about 20 kilometers across, 600 meters deep. And so just you'll never forget the experience of driving up over the ridge, over the rim of the crater, and then just looking down at this fabulous view before you. We stay in some really nice lodges in Tanzania. We use a mix of permanent lodges and temporary tented camps on our tours. This is the Sopa Lodge at Gorogora Crater. So you've got really nice accommodation, and you're right on the edge of the crater rim here. So you can sit out in the garden to the heat of the day or paddle in the pool, and you've got this fabulous view out over the crater. And this is quite typical of a lot of the lodges that we use. We always choose lodges that are in a fabulous location for the wildlife. The great thing about the Sopa Lodge is it's only a short drive from the descent road that takes you down into the crater rim itself. Along the edge of the crater, the montane forest has some really lovely birds. The fabulous golden-winged sunbird is one of the key species to find here. The commoner scarlet-chested sunbird. On the crater floor, there are thousands of mammals. It's just a fabulous wildlife spectacle as well as a scenic spectacle. Huge herds of buffalo are commonly seen. There are elephant down in the crater here. You don't get big numbers of elephant, but you get some really big bulls and some big tuskers. There are no giraffes because the giraffes haven't managed to make it down the very steep sides of the caldera. Plenty of zebra as well, a few wildebeest. You can see the big five in the Gorogora crater. One of the rarest of all animals now in Africa, sadly, is the rhino. These are black rhino, but there's a healthy population in the crater, on the crater floor, and they're frequently seen. In the centre of the crater, there's Lake Magadi, full of flamingos, other water birds. Really lovely spot just to go and relax and have a drink and a snack. And you're overlooking the loads and loads of lesser flamingos and other birds along the water's edge. So the bird life in the crater is absolutely fabulous. Crowned cranes are common in the on the crater floor. There's barely a 10 minutes where you're not seeing flocks of these really graceful birds. Equal in size, the Kori bustard, one of the world's heaviest flying birds, again often seen out on the crater floor. If you're lucky, maybe a couple of chicks, as this one's got. Some special birds for the keen birder, rosy-throated longclaw, quite a difficult bird to see in much of East Africa, but they're common down on the crater floor. And if you go in the migration period, so February, March time, you get huge numbers of wintering birds that winter in southern Africa, move up through Tanzania, and they stop over and feed in the crater on the way further north. So when I was there in March, there were hundreds of thousands of swallows, all feeding and wheeling over the lakes. Lots of yellow wagtails, wheatears of various varieties. There's always lots and lots to see. European roller is another fairly common bird throughout this region of Africa. This is big cat land as well, since there's so much prey. There's lots and lots of lions on the crater floor. I only put this image in to illustrate that it's actually possible to avoid the crowds. The crater can get quite busy at times, but we know where to go. We know the times to go down to avoid the big numbers of people. Most tourists actually have a nice leisurely breakfast in their hotel on the crater rim, and then they go down to the crater floor, getting down there at about 9 o'clock-ish or something like that. But the crater floor actually opens at 6, so we make sure we're up early. We leave as early as we can, down on the crater at first light, and then you've got several hours almost to yourself down with very few other vehicles around. Same at the end of the day. Most people go home mid-afternoon, but we hang around until the actual park closes at 6. And the first few hours the first hour of daylight of the morning is just absolutely fabulous time. It's when the animals are the most active. You go down at 9 o'clock in the morning, the lions are lazing around on the ground, sunning themselves, and first thing they're out hunting. The birds are singing as well. Rufous-naped lark is a common bird throughout the region. And after a few nights in Gorogora, we move out and descend out of the crater highlands onto the short grass plains of the Ngorongoro Conservation Area in southern Serengeti. And this is one of the most fabulous, spectacular wildlife spectacles anywhere in East Africa. The wildebeest migration, they take a clockwise route, moving from the Masai Mara in October, November, down to the short grass plains of the southern Serengeti between December to May. We time most of our Tanzania holidays for the January, February, March period, when all the wildebeest are crowded down onto those short grass plains to the south of the reserve. And then the wildebeest and the zebra make their way back round to the Mara over the course of the rest of the year. So they're following the rains, and they're following the rains and the new growth of grass down in the southern Serengeti to mate and give birth down there. Over 1.2 million wildebeest make this annual migration, and they're joined by 250,000 plain zebra, similar number of Thompson's gazelle. So it really is one of the most fabulous wildlife spectacles anywhere in the world. So loads and loads of plain zebra. We use a variety of camps in the Serengeti. So we use some permanent lodges, and we also use some tented camps, such as this one. This is Ndutu Kati Kati camp. Very comfortable tents. They're set up only for a few months of the year when the wildebeest are down in the southern Serengeti, but it's a wonderful way to be out in the bush and away from everybody else. Lots of gazelles. These are Grant gazelles. Wherever you get the concentration of game, you've got the predators. Lots and lots of lions down in the Serengeti. This is also the land of the cheetah. The big wide open plains of the southern Serengeti are the areas that the cheetah favour, and you stand a very good chance of seeing cheetah on this trip. But when we were there, when I was there a few years ago, we were exceptionally lucky and had a cheetah come to see us, sat on the front of the vehicle and just remained there with their cubs for about 20 minutes or so. But cheetahs like to get up high, and from there they can scan over the plains, looking out for predators and their prey. And the other big cat, the wonderful leopard, is also seen frequently in this region. If you're fortunate, maybe even serval. And I would say, of all the trips we do to Africa, we get the most serval sightings on our tours to Tanzania, not just in the just in Serengeti, but also in the Gorogora crater as well. A beautiful, very sleek feline that's quite elusive and difficult to see. And wherever you've got the predators, you've got and the prey, you've got the scavengers as well. Spotted hyenas are very common throughout this area. And the avian scavengers, the wonderful lapid-faced vulture and Ruppel's vulture. In the evening, you might be lucky enough to see bat-eared fox. They like these very open, grassy plains, and there are a couple of dens very close to the camp at Ndutu Katikati. And so the birds, again, you don't really touch the surface of the birds because there's so many down here. The wonderful secretary bird is a common sight, a very majestic, stately bird that feed on snakes. So they hunt down the snakes and then they will stamp on the snake's head to kill it. And from the big down to the small, wonderful white-throated bee-eater, just one of a variety of different bee-eaters and colourful rollers, hoopoes, hornbills, barbets. Well, just the list just goes on and on and on. So Serengeti, it's one of the most fabulous of all areas. And so at the end of our tours to Tanzania, as with all of our tours around the world, you're very welcome to extend them. I've just put in a couple of slides just to illustrate a couple of the places we could take you on an extension to maybe up to Lake Natron, which is in the northern Tanzania, in the bottom of the Rift Valley. It's pretty hot and pretty dusty here, but the scenery is absolutely spectacular, and the wildlife is second to none as well. So you're looking at the active volcano of Old Lengai. This is where all the lesser flamingos breed, and you probably saw on David Attenborough's fabulous film Perfect Planet a couple of weeks ago, all the flamingos breeding in the center of Lake Natron. Whilst you can't get out to the center of the lake to see the breeding colonies, they're all often losing lots of lesser flamingos around the edge of the lake, and a wide variety of birds and other wildlife too. But it's just really the landscape here is just absolutely second to none. Or if you want to relax, maybe after your time on a dusty safari, you could head over to the coast to Zanzibar, or maybe up to Kenya, and we'll book you a few nights at a beach resort so you can just take it easy and unwind after your time out on safari. So I will end my presentation there. So Tanzania is just an amazing place, got so much landscapes, birds, wildlife. So if you have any questions on Tanzania, please do either send it through on the chat function, or give me a call in the Naturetrek office.